Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jay.
All right, so Louis Varland got his first start of the season yesterday. Not a great one as the Twins lose to the Brewers by a final score of 3-2. They're now 2-2 on the year. Your thoughts on the Twins?
Yeah, Varland, it's not like he was terrible, but one of the ways you can analyze a pitcher's stuff without looking at stats is just look at hitters' reactions. And last year when he was a starter, hitters look pretty comfortable. And, Louis has guts and he can fight through some situations, but he's going to give up a lot of base runners. It's probably eventually not going to work out for him as a starter. When he was a reliever, hitters looked like they were afraid to stand in the batter's box. Yesterday, we saw him pitch maybe a mile or two an hour faster, although you never know, if the guns are measuring the same. But didn't have the dominant stuff that he had last year, and looked like if he threw his fastball over the plate, he got hit hard. So not the worst start in the world, but didn't look promising to me. This is where I go back, and if they could have gotten Snell or Montgomery on a short-term deal, could have strengthened the rotation, could have put Varland in the bullpen, they'd be a better team in both places. Instead, Varland's going to have to figure out to pitch as a starter, and he didn't look yesterday like he is capable of that yet. We'll see. I don't want to write him off for one start, but it kind of confirms what we saw last year and in spring training. Offensively, they hit one home run, the top of the first in the first game. They have not homered since. It's a team that finished third in homers in Major League Baseball last year. Eventually, these guys will start hitting. But I will say that the lineup just doesn't scare you as much when Royce Lewis isn't in it. When Royce Lewis is in it, it just feels like it's deeper, more powerful, more dynamic. Again, these guys will hit better than they're hitting right now, but they're not exactly thumping the ball right now.
Do you think the Twins pursued Montgomery or Snell at all?
No. I think that they were given a payroll and told that this is the payroll for the year. Some years they have flexibility. Listen, there's also a possibility that Falvey doesn't look at free agents the way you and I look at free agents. Oh, good ERA, he's been good. Let's go. I mean, they have deep analytics that determine whether what they think a player is worth. I'm guessing if given more money to spend, they would have gone out and gotten one of those guys, especially when the price dropped. But we aren't 100% sure that Falvey one of those guys.
Jim, certainly with Royce Lewis out, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's not just even, the production at the plate. It seems like the attitude. I mean, he brings that positive attitude with him. And even when he got hurt, he was just, talking about how, he was going to be able to get back on time. And, the guy just never seems to be deterred by any negative things that happen.
No, he is one of the most positive people I've ever met. And listen, you have to perform, right? If Royce Lewis, I've been around a lot of ball players with positive attitudes, and they hit 240, and nobody cares. They have a positive attitude. What jumps out about him is what jumped out about Puckett. Relentlessly positive, confident attitude that translates into the way he plays the game. He wants to be up in the big situations. He loves the spotlight. He loves being the guy responsible for driving in runs for his team. And then when he does produce, he's really energetic and boisterous, but it's a combination of the skills, the attitude, the talent, and the production that really make it all jump out.
So Austin Martin was called up to replace him, and he's seen some time. He was just used as a pinch runner yesterday. Should they play him more?
I don't know. He is not, he's really profiles right now as a super utility guy. And Willie Castro, has speed and played really well for this team last year and is probably a better third baseman than Austin Martin. Kyle Farmer, can give you the ability to platoon. He's a veteran player. He's played around. I mean, I don't think Austin Martin's as good as those guys. If he proves that he is, great. Give him the third base job or give him more bats there. But right now, he's really more of a reserve. And if you look at his career, he has not really produced to the level they had hoped. They still have hopes that he can figure it out. But he's going to have to kind of prove himself and win that time.
Jim, how interesting is it going to be to see how Chris Paddock does against the Brewers today?
Well, really interesting, especially because of what we've seen. Lopez gave you what you expected, a dominant first start. Joe Ryan, I thought, was very good in the second start. Ober inexplicably had nothing in his third start. We'll have to monitor that. But, I believe what I saw all of last year and all of his career, more than I believe one start in April. And then Varland was almost predictably, mildly disappointing. They just don't. Now, they have Simeon Woods Richardson, they have Festa, who's pitched well at AAA. They do have some depth, but if Paddock can pitch more like a top of the rotation guy than a bottom of the rotation guy, then Varland is just another functional fifth starter, and a lot of good teams have just a functional fifth starter. If Paddock gets hurt or doesn't perform well, then they're searching.
So, Jim, with the days off they had, because they played a game Thursday, had a day off Friday, had another day off on Monday, they could have pushed Lopez up even on normal rest to pitch last night. But instead, he's going to pitch the home opener. Was it because the home opener was coming and that just made sense for them to go ahead and allow him a couple of extra days off?
It's really both. They want Pablo Lopez on the mound for their home opener, both symbolically and because he'll handle that pressure better than maybe maybe a Varland or a Paddock. But also it fits in with their philosophy of giving pitchers an extra day of rest when they can. And giving everybody in the rotation an extra day of rest, giving Lopez an extra day of rest, that just kind of fits in with the way they handle their pitchers.
Timberwolves last night beat the Houston Rockets 113-106. Much better effort than the game before. Naz Reid goes 25 points. Anthony Edwards had 21. So the Wolves are now in a tie with OKC for second, just a half game back at Denver. Your thoughts on the Wolves and where do they stand?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they had a lack of effort against the Bulls. They just didn't shoot it well enough. Anthony Edwards in particular, but really the whole team. And last night they played a real team that has been one of the best teams in the NBA over the last month. Houston is a load. They can shoot the lights out. Green is having a great season. Van Vliet's an excellent player. That was an entertaining game. And I think, to me, what you saw a lot of Wolves play well offensively because the ball moved beautifully. The big emphasis this year was defense, and they became the best defensive team in the NBA by really a long margin. And Finch keeps preaching, hey, when we move the ball, we're a good offensive team. We move the ball. And last night, the ball moved beautifully, having basically 3 real point guards and a couple of other virtual point guards helped that. But and you saw when the ball moved, they all feasted. Reid was excellent. Anthony Edwards was good. Kyle Anderson had a great game. McLaughlin has been shooting the lights out for a long time now. Conley's been excellent. So it was really great basketball and fun to watch. But if they continue to move the ball like that, they're going to be really dangerous. There's also a report out there that Karl-Anthony Towns might be back a little earlier than initially expected, and obviously that'd be a great thing for their offense and their team in general.
How do you think about how Naz Reid has filled in as a starter on this team?
He's been fantastic, and he's worked so hard to get where he is, and part of that work has been improving defensively. So you have a big man who's a great three-point shooter, runs the floor extremely well, can get a shot off against almost anybody, plays hard on defense, plays well in the team concept, moves the ball. I mean, he's been great, and he's now with Malik Monk hurt. It might improve his chances of being the sixth man of the year. Of course, the funny thing is he might build up great stats for sixth man of the year while he's in the starting lineup.
Jim, one last thing, since we're talking about the Wolves on Naz Reid, he and Jaden McDaniels didn't play in that series against Denver due to injury. Knock on wood, they both are healthy when they get to the playoffs this year. Those two guys, McDaniels a late first-round pick, Naz Reid an undrafted free agent. We rip the Wolves oftentimes, or fans rip the Wolves oftentimes for making bad picks, but how about finding those two guys?
Yes, and that was one of the great failings of this franchise for a long time. And it was really noticeable when the great Spurs teams were getting people internationally, and they were finding second-round draft picks who were really good, and they're finding undrafted guys who could contribute. And the Wolves just weren't doing that. So it was really all of them nailing the draft, and too often they didn't nail the draft either or develop players well. And listen, Conley knows what he's doing, right? Now, some of these players were brought in before Conley, but I think Conley has a great developmental system in place. They have a really good coaching staff, that you don't even see because they're working with players behind the scenes. And you see people getting better. McLaughlin is a better shooter now. Naz Reid is dramatically improved. And that's a big part of this. It's not always 100% on the player. Sometimes it's the organization putting the player in a position to succeed. So the player gets first credit. Now, where he put in the work. He has the talent. But I also think the organization has become much better about, they've become much better at developing talent.
Wild win last night, 3-2 against Ottawa, so it's a 36-29-9. It's just like you've said many times, it's a math issue. They have 81 points, 6 points back of the Kings for the last wild card spot. It just feels like it's just probably not going to be enough, huh, Jim?
I give them credit. They've stayed in there. They've been up against bad math for a while now, and they've hung in there. And that was a tough win at home, and they gutted it out. Terry with a beautiful winning goal. Fleury was really good. Brodin had a really good game. So Eriksson X has been excellent all year. Really, Boldy's been good. So it's just going to be hard. Now it's not impossible, but when they're behind two teams and there's a certain number of points back. So to make up ground on both teams, they're either going to need luck or they're just going to need a winning streak. And to their credit, they've won a high percentage of their games lately, and they're probably just going to have to do that. They have to win 3-4 in a row and hope the other teams have a little fun.
All right, Jim, what do you got in your podcasts?
Let's see. We have John Krasinski show up on the Wolves. Some on updating the ownership process. Basically said this is all going to go to a third-party arbitrator. That's the way the contract is laid out, so it won't be the NBA ruling first. It'll be a neutral arbitrator who will rule on it, and we don't know the timing of that. We have the Viking Update show on ranking the quarterback prospects. So I think we're both higher on Michael Penix than a lot of people, and maybe not as high on Drake May and Caleb Williams as a lot of people. And we have a prep today with John Millay from the Pizza Barn up there in Princeton, and John going around the state and telling us all about high school sports and activities. And all those are at talknorth.com or on your favorite podcast app. All
right, Jim, thank you. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Jim.
It's Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column at the Star Tribune or his podcast at talknorth.com. Jim, today brought to you by the Green Mill in downtown St. Cloud. Keep in mind, WJON win cash codes start at 8:10 this morning, 1 per hour, going until about 5:10 tonight. Some of those fall in the Twins game, so they may not be where you're kind of expecting them, so be patient. They'll be there. You just got to wait for them. Next on WJON, World and National News from ABC.